Welcome to Breaking the Grade Live. And we're about to take off. The plane is about to take off for another edition of Breaking the Grade Live. And you are talking to two people, John and myself, who flew back yesterday from South by Southwest EDU in Austin, which was an amazing experience. And then we were on separate planes going to different places and experienced a lot of turbulence on our flights. I was scared shitless on the plane. John, welcome. How was your flight?
Well, it started in San Antonio. It was rough weather there. And when I got on the plane, knowing what I was going to fly into in Atlanta, I saw several people with crosses on their forehead for Ash Wednesday,
Right.
which I thought foreshadowed that being the last day of my life. And I think it almost was. Atlanta was pretty crazy, and then it didn't get much better, Atlanta to Philly. So we're here, we're live, we made it. I got in the middle of the night and, kind of genuflected when I walked into my home yesterday morning. Early this morning to be happy to be alive, that's for sure.
I know. Isn't that weird? And then, I don't know about you, but I have this tendency to relate every single thing that happens to me in life to running a business. And I feel like, that you knew you were headed into some difficult weather. At least I had a direct flight, so I had just one rocky experience. You had to come down and then go back up. And truth be told, I was talking to somebody today and relating the flight experience to running a business. And I said, I think that when you sit in the back of the plane, it's a little rockier. Because of status, I'm lucky enough to generally sit closer to the front. But because I got on this plane a little bit late, I had to sit in the back. And I feel like sometimes in business, we're sitting in the front and it's all steady and you get served first and you feel all good. But as the flight goes on, when you're running your business, you kind of moving seats, moving back, and eventually it gets shaky and you're going up and you're going down, you're going left, you're going right. And I feel like that's the way business is to a degree. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, I definitely can. I am also on status on American, and this was a Delta flight. As you can imagine, going into Atlanta, I too was in the back. And humbly and truth be told, I've in my life I've suffered from anxiety, and in my 20s, I'm 54 now. I had to actually go to therapy for air travel phobia. It was just something about being in a contained tube for a long time that just wasn't sitting well with me, and I had to kind of come to terms with that. And I found myself, I've since kind of recovered from that, and but I still use some tools. I use some mindfulness tools when things are shaky. I use some prayer and meditation. I haven't really related it to business, but I can totally relate to what you're saying in terms of starting from the front, going to the back, having to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen here? Have you gotten your affairs in order?
Yeah, right. Are your books in order?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll say about this, the other part of what you're saying that I think is interesting, because I was talking to somebody else about the experience, and then we were also talking about coaching, and you talk about tools and you talk about prayer. And when you're running a business, I think it's important to have coaches. You went through coaching, aka therapy. You have the tools, you have the prayer to get you through tough situations in your business, and they are going to happen. There will be turbulence.
Yeah.
You and I experienced the opposite, the exact opposite of turbulence together on Monday afternoon at South by Southwest. We hosted this event, John and I, and there was a founders meetup at South by Southwest. It was at 4:00 local time in this really wonderful room at the Hilton in a corner room, big tall ceilings and big windows. And I had done some promotion of this event, and John had done a little bit, and I'm not sure how much South by Southwest did. So we didn't really know who was showing up, but we did know that we were in really good hands because we brought on a partner. His name is Moby, and Moby was really going to help us facilitate a really good conversation with these founders. Maybe one or two would show up. And then we had like 100 people show up, ed tech founders, for this event. And to me, it was one of the coolest events I've ever been a part of, John. I would love to get your thoughts on it.
Well, yeah. So I too was pretty blown away by the response and how many people showed up. But I would also say who showed up. It was predominantly founders, but it was a cross-functional crowd. I mean, Clayton Wilcox is somebody that I've worked with for decades, who is a former superintendent, K-12 superintendent, who engaged like the first-time founder, the 22-year-old founder. There was Doug Roberts from IEI who was there, and he runs an institute that convenes superintendents and solutions providers on game-changing application services and solutions in the ed tech space. There was Sophie from College Contact, who actually won the launch competition, leaning in and engaging on the prompts and the questions that we had. So I just love that it wasn't just early stage founders. It was a cross-functional group. People broke up into teams and tables, and it got real. And I love that. What are you feeling in today's turbulent education environment? What do you need in terms of support? And what do you hope to leave today having done in terms of the connections that you've made? Is it a technical co-founder? Is it ideas on fundraising? Is it creative problem solving to navigate these crazy times that we're facing in education? So it was a great group. Moby was awesome. Josh, you were awesome. It was really fun to facilitate and also make a lot of post meetup connections, a lot of LinkedIn connections, and a lot of meetings set up for people to engage in our collective programming.
Yeah, totally, man. This what we're doing right now is an opportunity for people to come together all around the world. Ramon is chatting with us here. Not quite sure where he is chiming in from, but Ramon, let us know your business. Let us know where you're from. Nice to have you. We've got a bunch of other people watching on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. What I found after I was able to talk to some of the people there was that founders, and the founders we know are mainly in education, of course we know others, are starved for this type of interaction. And I think that it gives them energy and it excites them further. And I thought we did a really nice job of compromising, because I think there was one side of the house that wanted to talk about the climate in America, a little bit of the mushy stuff. And then I really wanted to get down and dirty, like, hey, what are you looking for? Who needs this? Who needs that? And the hour flew by, and it was so loud. I keep watching the video, which is on my LinkedIn if people want to see it. That video, it's deafening, the conversations that were going on. So truly, back to the opposite of a turbulent flight. There was some there was a lot of pre-planning, but we also knew we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. Like true entrepreneurs and brothers, we went into it, and everybody really came out on the other end having a really wonderful flight. And so I'm grateful that we did that.
Yeah, I hope we do it again. I think that it was really important for it to be organic and human. And there wasn't much, there was some facilitation, but there wasn't much that was scripted. The sparks just kind of flew naturally, and some meaningful connections were made that I know have happened since that meetup. So I'm really proud of you, happy for meeting Moby, and I hope we do it again soon.
Totally. So today, what we're really here, one of the things to talk about is a better way to sell and not being salesy. And you and I definitely don't believe in that. We don't believe that it's effective. And so I want to talk to people about alternative methods when it comes to that. Let's use the award winners from South by Southwest EDU and the launch competition maybe as our model for College Connect and what they're doing right in terms of their approach here to their business. And the reason I bring them up, and you'll have to really paint the picture of these these wonderful leaders in their business, wearing blue suits, hugging each other, supporting each other, complimenting each other. So can you paint the picture of the founders, and then let's talk about them as a little bit of a model of how you can do things in terms of selling the right way.
Yeah, so I think that what Sophie and the team have done at College Contact is they've identified an enormous pain point. 408 to 1 students to college counselors or college guidance or college advisors. And that's just a tragedy. And they're really trying to disrupt the space to make it easier for primarily underrepresented students to get college guidance that is differentiated, personalized, and meaningful, because they don't think it's fair that an upper class in this country could pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a guided college counselor and get an advantage over an equally talented or an equally qualified candidate. So they've identified a problem that is not just in need of vitamins, but aspirin, painkillers. Second, they're efficacy based. They've really been able to take the pilot or the initial adopters of their solution, K-12 schools, and measure the impact, be able to quantify how that's helped students. And then they've come up with a creative service and solution model. They've actually gotten college students to be mentors and advisors in this process. They pay them well, they train them well. And now you have a student who can relate to a young advisor on the college event, the application, preparing with standardized tests. What's the culture and the environment like at specific schools? Mm-hmm. And they're winning. They're going from a preliminary idea from just over a year ago to now implementing and becoming super focused on scale. So I think it's really identifying a clear problem and being able to quantify it. I think it's being able to show how your initial customers have been served with measurable value, and being able to demonstrate how you could sustain that growth over time using the principles and practices that you've set forth, including the power of AI and machine learning, which College Contact is doing.
When you do those things that you just talked about, which was basically a masterclass in how they have clearly built their business to today and were awarded the first prize of the launch competition at South by Southwest, you do not have to do these things that I wrote down. You do not have to necessarily pitch, because you've established yourself in such a way with your model, with your research, you can listen as opposed to talking. Truly effective sales and transformation is about understanding. Clearly, they've done that well. You build trust. And what I love about both of them, not only do they build trust, they do it in a cool way. They got these badass, I don't know what color blue that is because I'm kind of colorblind, but they got these really blue suits on and they're fun about it. They told me this funny story how sometimes people will come up to them at conferences and be like, does your boss make you wear those suits?
Yeah.
And they're like, we are the bosses. So they build trust and they're still, having fun and they connect. And when you connect with people, they want to work with you. And then you do not have to be salesy. So what I ended up doing there was kind of talking through some of the pitfalls that people have to do when you don't approach your business the way they have. And when you do it the way they did it, you end up winning competitions like they have. Talk about some other companies that you have seen take this approach and why it is so effective in the education space.
Yeah, I would just echo a lot of the themes that you talked about. I heard the same story about the does your boss make you wear those outfits? And I find that to be hilarious.
Yeah.
Two young women-led founders who are on and bound for great things. I'll just say one of the other things that they do really well, and I would coach any ed tech founder, any ed tech startup to do, and that is be proactive with addressing your objections. I'll say that again. Be proactive with addressing your objections. The number one challenge, the number one question that came out from the judges and in the deliberation is, how secure are you in terms of matching advisors to students? Is it ethical? Do you have standards of behavior, standard conventions of behavior? And can we be sure that there's nothing inappropriate would happen between the advisor and the student? And instead of waiting for that question, they're proactive about it. And they've turned the potential objection into an opportunity by not being afraid of it or nervous about it being asked. So that's the first thing. I've always said that, turning it into some of the other 7 finalists, BLE, English as a second language, Making Space, which is supporting students and people with disabilities. I really do think, and the research supports this, we're here at Penn GSE, we do a lot of this research, that all of those 7 finalists and the winners have done a great job in 3 areas. That the applications or the solutions that they've built are super engaging. The people that they're supporting, the students and the job seekers, really enjoy and embrace the user interface, the user experience. There's gamification built in, there's points, there's rewards. It's really done with best practices in engagement. 2 is it is pedagogically aligned. So whenever somebody engages in these products or services, there's clear crosswalks to standards, and there's an evaluative model where you're measuring your outcomes. And they're able to clearly quantify that, which I think is critical for sustainability and scalability. And third, all of those products and services were easy to adopt. They're interoperable. They work within LMS systems interoperably and seamlessly. If you go 3 for 3, I like your chances. And they were able to quantify how engaging, how aligned pedagogically to standards, and how easy it was to adopt each of those solutions. You do that in this hyper turbulent time in education, you've got a great chance. So clear, succinct, simple in those 3 areas from some of the companies that presented on stage. And all of them were really good. I mean, we're looking at hundreds in our Milken Penn GSE Education Business Plan competition. And boy, was that a great class. And Kayla from South by Southwest commented that it was among the best cohort of finalists that she's had the pleasure of supporting and bringing up on stage.
So cool. Excuse me while I was motioning to the person who was delivering me my
Moby
lunch.
Dick.
No, I did not get Moby Dick. I got Poke DC.
Okay.
I'm treating myself. I haven't made it out the door because I've been working. I generally do not believe in having food delivered. I like to go out and get it. So that's who I was motioning to. But I certainly, A, was listening to what you were saying. B, I've heard it many times before.
Yep.
And it always makes sense. And one of the parts that I think is really important, and we talk about this a lot in the Ed Sales Elevation experience, run towards the objections and the rejections.
Mm-hmm.
In my second business, in the after school enrichment business, when I worked with PTAs very closely, I worked mainly with these super smart, generally moms, especially in the Washington D.C. area. When they weren't running the PTA, they were running a government agency or a Fortune 500 company, and they had all of the objections as to why Flex Academies could not take over their program. And I had all the answers as to how we could and why we were the best fit. One of them, of course, dealt with safety and background checks. So when that question was asked, I knew that they would be prepared, because if they weren't prepared for that question, then they have a serious hole in their business. And clearly they were ready for that. So I'm really a big fan of running towards those objections and the rejections and being prepared. When we talk about some action items for our audience, I wanted to bring a couple things up that potentially they could do to make sure that they're not, being salesy and being more on the consultative side. One idea, and I do this quite often, is to analyze maybe your last 3 calls. You speak versus how much time they speak. And I think I know you and I agree. I believe it's a 90-10. When I'm talking to a potential client, I want them to talk 90% of the time, and maybe I'll talk 10. Do you agree that you
appreciate you making time? I wouldn't waste your time if I didn't think I would be able to provide something or deliver something that would be important to save you time, make your job easier, keep your students safer, allow your students to achieve or succeed more. So I think the conversation, the consultation, and the compassion triumvirate is critically important, especially in these turbulent times.
in the Ed Sales Elevation experience, and we have a wonderful community that's growing out of that, of about well over 100 companies who have been through the Ed Sales Elevation experience in about the last 14 months. We have a program called the Raise Your Hand campaign, which has our work, our thoughts, our fingerprints all over it in terms of what we're talking about right now. And I encourage our clients to go out and talk to people who they've never talked to in the education space and ask them questions. And for even some of the most seasoned sales folks we know, this is a very uncomfortable thing to do. And we teach people how to do it, because a lot of people come to the Ed Sales Elevation experience saying, hey, I've worked my network. I've asked for enough referrals. I need to generate new, fresh, AKA cold leads. So I need to know how to have conversations with people effectively who don't know me. And you just did that very well in the middle part, where the consultative part, where you said, tell me more. What if I told you? How did you get comfortable doing that? Or were you born with that? So if you were, how does somebody who was not born with that, AKA most of my clients, probably a lot of yours, how did they get comfortable asking that?
Heck no, I was not born with that. I have a lot of scars in terms of developing that skill, shared before. Even in my major exit, 2 years of not being able to effectively sell according to that code of conversation, consultation, and compassion. And where I turned that around in year 3 and eventually got to tens of millions of dollars of ARR selling into the K-12 ecosystem was the 4th C, and that is consistency. Really being consistent about that methodology. Not sometimes, not I'm tired today, not I'm going to phone it in today, but being consistent with conversational, consultative, and compassionate sales. Who said 10,000 hours, right? In terms of mastery.
Gladwell?
Malcolm Gladwell, I think. It just really requires you to practice. It requires consistency. It requires commitment. And I just can't say enough. No, I was not born with it. No, it doesn't come naturally to me. But it did. There have been light bulbs, and I have personally. That's another thing. Founder-led sales. Don't rely on a salesperson to do this. You think Sophie and the class of 7 founders are like, oh, you salespeople. No, they're out there. They're out of the building. They're walking the halls. They're engaging those conversations. They're building their sales muscles to be able to do that effectively.
Another place to be able to do that is Catapult. Talk about Catapult.
Yeah, so Catapult is a accelerator, 100% virtual accelerator, self-paced standalone, that gives founders the ability to access learning resources, strategic advisors, classroom practitioners, and academic researchers, all within an entrepreneurial community of practice. People who join our advanced membership get an assessment of their business. They then traverse 4 lanes of acceleration in leadership, product, market, and fundraising to build the muscles that we're talking about. A lot of sales training inside of the market strand, some of which is provided by you, Josh, as a partner in terms of the core services and solutions that you provide. So it's $399, a one-time fee, lifetime membership. Love for you to join. You'll join a network of purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are really taking these principles and practices to a next level.
Gotcha. One of the other, there you go. Somebody grabbed your QR code, man. I can see it. Somebody grabbed that QR code.
Thank
you.
you.
See it on the side. Technology is a beautiful thing. Let's talk about a follow-up strategy. We've talked about, analyzing the calls. We've talked about, how to develop and why it's important to develop kind of these open-ended questions and get comfortable with that. Active listening. Let's talk about a follow-up strategy. And I'm gonna take it down to a very root level. And it's still an uncomfortable part for me. When I'm talking to a client, my first conversation, I don't call it a discovery call. I call it a confirmation call. And the reason I call it that is because when they book, they've already done their research, because we have done a lot of promotion, of LinkedIn, of speaking. So people know what they're getting in the Ed Sales Elevation experience and with me. So hopefully they're just confirming it. When we get to the next level, I do a strategy call, and that takes 45 minutes. And when I do that strategy call, I ask questions and then talk them through my strategy. And then it gets a little bit like, what's next? What's the follow-up? And now I know, and I send them a very clear email of how they can work with me, and what the transformation will be. But it's a little bit uncomfortable, I feel like, sometimes. So how did you, John, how did you create a essentially what I call a concrete closing system for your business when you were really doing that part of the job?
Great question. And very simple answer. When you're in that conversational, consultative, and compassionate sales mode, try to offer something that's going to get a head nod where the prospect is saying, this person really gets me, gets my challenges, gets what I need. And I hadn't thought of embracing my challenge in that way. And when I say that way, your product. So if you deliver something of value in that conversation, compassionately, consultation, I would bring that to the follow-up. And it's what I call the personalized, reflective follow-up. Great to talk to you today. Really appreciated hearing about how you're approaching school-to-home communications, and that the outreach systems that you're currently doing could be optimized with some automation. Really appreciated the story you shared about the attendance notification systems that have broken down and that it cost you with some serious challenges with your school board. Thanks for sharing. I can't imagine what you must have gone through with that school shooting risk or that school shooting threat. And I want to let you know that our system is able to get 50,000 messages out in a moment's notice for you to be able to address a situation in the event of the unthinkable. See, so you've had the conversation, you reflected personally, and that usually anchors the ability to say, in closed, I've provided some more information on our solution. Love to do a follow-up and see if we can't provide that solution on terms that would make sense.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's a lot of active listening that you talked about there, and reflecting back. And we're lucky in today's world. One of the reasons we're lucky in today's world, and sometimes you feel like there's not too many reasons, given the climate, is that you can have a note taker.
Yeah,
sit in with you. You and I are aligned on many, many different things. I think we sometimes see AI a little bit differently, but I am a big fan of, and I do that honestly with these conversations we have. The note taker, I can get the transcript. I can ask it questions through AI. I could write emails. I could write blog posts. I don't just copy and paste and post them. You got to read them and edit them for your own voice. But one of the interesting tools you can use a note taker for is to write follow-ups, to help you write follow-ups, or to write those follow-ups for you. So going forward, if somebody is doing their strategy session potentially with a superintendent or a principal or whatever, and they want to send a real quality follow-up to show that they were truly listening, you can reflect back using a transcript or a recording to help you write that. And that's something that I do a lot of times, whether I am writing the email myself or getting some help. I certainly look back to make sure that I heard what I actually heard. I'm a big fan of using a note taker. Do you use a note taker, John?
I don't use a note taker, but I'm coming along with using AI in follow-ups and in my daily life of social media posting as a complement, not a crutch. And I think that's important. And a lot of C's today, right?
A lot of C's, and you even added a new one.
Yeah. So as a complement, not a crutch. And what I mean by that is the tool is becoming more pervasive and predominant. You can't get through a LinkedIn or an Instagram or Facebook without there being a little tag that says, rewrite that with AI. And a lot of times I'll try and I'll see it and I'll be like, but I'll say, wow, they got the grammar right. Or they got a word in there that I hadn't thought of that I'd like to use. So I think there's still some challenges with hallucinations and with the responsiveness of AI to put it in the accurate voice that I want to have conveyed. Oh man, another C. conveyance, but because I like the personal human, even sometimes when there is a mistake to it. I don't want it to be so robotic, if you will.
Right.
So I'm using it more. I don't think it should be just used as a crutch or relied upon solely, but used as a complement, used as a way to check your work, uh, ensure that your diction and your word choices are right, and to refine how you want to convey your message. I think is perfectly appropriate, um, and probably um, I would agree recommended.
I'll uh, I'll give you another little tool there, Papa, on how you can change and adjust and refine the tone and the voice. And I'll take this plane back to Texas.
Mm.
And so one of the people that I really like, I've read his book. I think he's just a cool dude. Happens to be a Washington Redskins fan, Commanders fan. There you go. Is Matt McConaughey.
Mm.
And so sometimes when I allow AI to complement my writing, to use your word, I will say, can you add just a touch of Matt McConaughey into this? And the reason
That's
I
cool.
say just a touch is because if you don't say just a touch, every single thing becomes as clear as the Texas sky and as big as a 15-pound steak, and as rowdy as a truck rolling down the road. But if you say just a touch, it'll just loosen up that writing just a little bit. So I use Matt McConaughey. So maybe you've got your spirit animal out there. Who is your spirit animal?
Well, first of all, I think Green Lights is a really good book, and I'd
I
highly
love it.
recommend it for those who have not read it. So that's really good. Um, in terms of my spirit animal, I mean, are you asking like a spirit animal that people would know, or a spirit animal that just has touched my life and who I rely on for, those kinds of nuggets of insights and advice?
Good question. Um, let's go with the celebrity spirit animal.
I am a Malcolm Gladwell fan. I am a I mean, there's a lot of business books out there that I've relied upon in my career that may not be celebrity, but ones that I'm a big Good to Great person. I'm a big raving fan person.
Mhm.
I loved Blink. I mean, I could go on and on, but not so well known in terms of a spiritual animal would be Richard Rohr, Father Richard Rohr, who is a Franciscan priest uh, out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, who founded the Center for Action and Contemplation. I read it every morning. Really good parables and stories and advice, really, on first and second half of life living, and how do you cross over from a first half of life into a second half of life,
Mm.
purpose-driven life. So that would be my spirit animal. Maybe I could put that into AI and see if I can respond on social media according to how Father Richard Rohr would answer a question.
You can put anything in there and see what happens. Trust me, I've tried it.
I would
That
assume.
sounds weird. But you know what? I'll tell you what about green lights. I would imagine that you and I attract similar type of people and thinkers and into this group, into this live event. And I encourage other people to grab that book, Green Lights. It literally, I'm back at our house here in Washington, D.C. And at the time when I read that book, of course, we were living upstairs and we had the downstairs more of it as an office. And I read it down here. And that book, Green Lights, changed our lives. Me, my wife, our daughter. So I highly recommend that book to everybody. And I'm going to leave us with one last C.
Don't say the Commanders.
No, and I thought I'm not going to say crash.
Don't say
I'm going to
that.
say I'm going to say cherish is my last C. and I can use one more, which is conference. And then I'll say connection. And they're all just flowing out. And the reason I put all those together is because for a long time, I really ran away from conferences. I didn't feel comfortable there. And now I really do, because I have clarity in myself, confidence in myself, in my message. And it allows you to cherish moments more. Moments like when we got to hang out with John Martin, at the bar, and give that dude a hug, moments like where you and I just sat and had that quiet dinner. And I am beginning to cherish moments more in as I reach 45 and a half. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be at South by Southwest with you, with everybody who we got to hang out with and spend time with and learn from and learn with. And so I just wanted to really call out that it was a great event. And I'm going to let you know that Catherine Magnuson loves Richard Rohr, and she has joined us. And so, John, you are not alone. Catherine Magnuson loves Richard Rohr. So I'm going to let you finally land this plane, Papa.
So if Catherine loves Richard Rohr, she probably read the book Falling Upward. And that is my favorite Richard Rohr book, but there are many. And if you don't want to spend the time reading the full book, there's a lot of online homilies and a lot of online talks that he gives on the theory of falling upward. So thank you, Catherine. It's been a journey, and it's just like with Josh and Green Lights that saved his life. That's kind of saved my life. But in terms of landing the plane, I think it's time for us to write the book, The 10 C's. Okay. What do you think? You want to write the book? And you got to give me the commitment that we won't lean on and use ChatGPT as our crutch. But I think we had 10 C's out in this session, and we could consider 10 chapters on the 10 C's. Clarity, connection, conveyance, consultative, communication, connection. I mean, the list goes on. Confidence. Wow.
Clarity.
So, clarity. Let's use this opportunity to jump to the next live session by thinking about some of those C's, how we can apply them in our life, and really continue to find our way to the second half of life. And for those of you who are curious, you'll see what that means if you read Falling Upward.
I'll add one more C, coaching.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've both benefited from coaching. So whatever, you and I are firm believers in just put stuff out in the world and it will happen. So I believe that will happen. So
especially if you join Catapult.
Ooh, very good. Way to get it in there. We appreciate that. Listen, everybody, John and I are I can speak for both of us. We are always happy to be here, but we are especially happy to be here after some very crappy, there's another C word, flights coming in from an amazing event at South by Southwest. John, it was great to see you there. Loved everybody, hanging out, and we have so many connections going forward, which we're grateful for. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you guys.
And the last thing I'll say is a huge congratulations to College Contact.
Love it. Cheers to that.
All right. We'll talk soon.